We're turning now to a new alert about America's health. A study raising alarms this morning about how much salt goes onto your plate at restaurant chains. Researchers looking at 17 different chains and finding that some meals contain double, even triple the recommended daily allowance. The daily allowance for salt, all in just one meal. Consumer correspondent Elizabeth Leamy joins us now from Washington. Elizabeth?
Diane, we are talking about some of the most popular restaurant chains in America, and many of them dutifully post sodium content right on their websites, but who looks before they go out? That has many people saying salt should be listed right on the menu. Whether it's a cheeseburger, lasagna, even a Caesar salad, potentially dangerous levels of sodium that you may not be aware of are lurking everywhere.
The sodium content is built into the foods.
Researchers identified the 10 saltiest meals found in some of the most popular restaurants. Among them, Chili's Buffalo Chicken Fajitas with a soda, 6,916 milligrams of sodium. That's 3 whole teaspoons of table salt. Denny's Double Cheeseburger with onion rings, rice pilaf, and tomato juice, 6,360 milligrams of sodium, the equivalent of 2.7 teaspoons of salt. But perhaps more startling, a separate list, the saltiest kids' meals. Red Lobster's chicken fingers with a biscuit, fries, and lemonade have 2,430 milligrams of sodium. That's 2 days' worth of recommended sodium for kids in one meal. KFC's popcorn chicken with macaroni and cheese, Teddy Grahams, and 2% milk, 2,005 milligrams of sodium.
It's in childhood when we get used to a certain kind of diet.
When you have too much sodium in your blood, it actually increases blood volume, which forces your heart to work harder, increasing pressure on arteries. That can lead not only to high blood pressure, but also heart failure, kidney disease, or stroke.
If you lowered the sodium level in foods in the American diet by, say, 25%, that would save about $20 billion a year in medical costs.
Now, obviously, eating out is a treat, and there are a couple steps you can take to make it healthier, sodium-wise. Eat a smaller portion or split your meal with somebody else. Avoid dressings and sauces. They're an amazing hidden source of sodium. Get them on the side. And if possible, get a very simple, plain fruit or vegetable side item as your side. Diane?
All right, Elizabeth, thanks. It's eye-opening to see that report. Here's something else we thought would be. This is how much salt the average American takes in per year. This is how much salt. We're talking about, 13 cups of salt. And doctors say half of that, would be healthier. And that's the recommended amount. And if you eat one of those meals a week, one of those high salt content meals a week, you've already eaten a quarter for the year of what you're supposed to eat. So we have no idea how much we're consuming. Just think of this the next time you eat out.
And Elizabeth had good advice about, getting things on the side and seasoning it yourself when you can.
That's
give
right.
yourself some kind of, that's for the year.
For the year, and it can kill you.
Yeah.
It can be a killer.
It will.
In this morning's Health Watch, the saltiest meals in America. The Center for Science and the Public Interest looked at the sodium content at the top 25 restaurant chains and calls some meals heart attack entrees and side orders of stroke. Let's get some analysis from our medical correspondent, Dr. Jennifer Ashton. Good morning.
Good morning, Harry.
We hear about salt all the time. There's certain people who are really susceptible to salts. First, before we do anything else, how much salt should we have in a day?
Okay, well, obviously this varies based on our taste and our medical condition, but this is really the recommended amount of salt, 2,300 milligrams.
This one right here?
Or 1 teaspoon in a day.
In a day?
This is how much most Americans get in one meal. It's 2 or 3 times that amount, and this is how much people are getting in a month. So that makes quite an impression.
That's crazy. So this is what we usually get in a month, and this is what you should have in a day?
Right. Now, we have to be clear. We have salt in our blood, sodium chloride. We need it. It's not evil. It's like the sun. A little bit is good. A lot can be bad. For people with heart conditions or high blood pressure, of course, they want to be a little more careful.
And if you have hypertension and you go out to one of these big chain restaurants and get a meal like this or a meal like this, what am I doing to myself that's dangerous?
So this is from Red Lobster. It has about 7,000 milligrams of sodium in one meal. Okay, now we should also point out that they have a lot of healthier options on their menu too for people who are watching.
But what's the danger? What does this do to me if I eat this?
Sodium makes us hold on to water, and it regulates our water balance. So if you do have high blood pressure or heart conditions, it can make those conditions worse.
Make them worse. All right, there you go. That's,
And here's our healthier option.
Yeah.
You can do healthier.
As always.
You might not like the taste of it, but it's available.
Don't put salt on your broccoli. Dr. Jennifer Ashton, as always, thanks so much. We'll be right back. You're watching The Early Show on CBS.
And new warnings, popular restaurants using huge amounts of salt.
From ABC News headquarters, this is World News with Charles Gibson.
A well-known health group is out with a new warning about America's most popular chain restaurants, saying many of their meals have dangerous amounts of salt. The Center for Science and the Public Interest checked 102 meals and found 85 of them had more than a day's worth of sodium. John McKenzie has our closer look.
Go ahead, dig in. That's just what researchers did. They analyzed meals at the country's 17 largest restaurant chains and discovered most were loaded with salt.
Salt is probably the single deadliest ingredient in our food supply, causing tens of thousands of unnecessary deaths a year. And restaurants are a big part of the problem.
Among the biggest offenders, Olive Garden's Tour of Italy lasagna, more than 2.5 teaspoons of salt. Chili's Buffalo Chicken Fajitas, 3 teaspoons of salt. And Red Lobster's Admiral's Feast, 3.1 teaspoons of salt. That's more than 3 times the amount of salt Americans should get in a whole day.
If you were to apply all this salt yourself, you'd have to shake and continue shaking for at least a half a minute, and you still wouldn't have all the salt that's in some of these meals.
Eating too much salt causes the walls of blood vessels, even the heart itself, to gradually thicken. But for some people, even one salty meal can be dangerous.
They consume a massive amount of salt without knowing it. They end up short of breath and come to the emergency room with flagrant heart failure.
While salt is an inexpensive way to enhance the flavor of foods, restaurant chains insist they are cutting back the sodium in some meals.
You look across the menus on those restaurants and there are many choices that are low in sodium.
But most people would never know. Without it listed on menus, few people have any idea how much salt awaits them in that next restaurant meal. John McKenzie, ABC News, New York.
If you want to see the center's full report and find out how much salt is in specific meals at various restaurants, you can log on to our website, abcnews.com.
From NBC News World Headquarters in New York, this is NBC Nightly News.
When our broadcast continues along the way here on a Monday night, what one health group is calling the hidden danger on the menu at a lot of restaurants we all go to. A health threat could be lurking on the menu of your local restaurant, salt and too much of it, at least according to a public interest health group that came out with their findings today. We take a look at it tonight with NBC's Rahema Ellis.
As Americans think more about watching their weight, tonight one group suggests watching the salt, especially when eating out. In a study released today, the Center for Science and the Public Interest, an advocacy group, says of 17 restaurant chains they looked at, Chili's, Olive Garden, and
Red Lobster is bringing you new entrees,
are 3 big offenders serving meals loaded with sodium.
Some of the meals we looked at had 2, 3, even 4 teaspoons of salt. That's an incredible amount of salt. It's something that shouldn't be in a meal.
The restaurants say they have expanded their menus, offering more lower-calorie, lower-fat, and lower-salt items. Red Lobster and Olive Garden issued a statement saying, "We provide our guests with choice by having a wide variety of menu items that appeal to a broad range of taste preferences and dietary needs." Chili says, "Currently, we pride ourselves in offering our guests a variety of menu options to meet our guests' needs, be they health conscious or indulgent." Government guidelines recommend healthy adults should get no more than 2,300 milligrams of salt a day. That equals this, about 1 teaspoonful a day. This new study found that at some restaurants, depending on what you order, you could get more than 4 days' worth of the recommended amount of sodium in just one meal. Doctors say too much salt could lead to serious health problems for some.
A high salt diet will increase blood pressure, will make it harder to control.
Tonight, the Center for Science and the Public Interest is pushing for the federal government to take control and limit sodium content in processed foods and restaurant meals. Rahima Ellis, NBC News, New York.